we go.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of EntheoRadio, where we talk about shamanism, psychedelics, and altered states for healing purposes. This is your host, Captain Hugh T. Alchemy, also known as Trevahr. I'm here with a very special guest, and we are doing these recordings for Facebook, for YouTube, and you can catch our show in its 2019 season across all the podcast networks. And I would like to introduce our special guest, Itzhak Beery. Welcome to the show, Itzhak.
Thank you very much for having me. Wonderful.
And I'm going to read Itzhak's bio real quick. He is a leading international shamanic teacher, healer, speaker, and community activist, and author of the Gift of Shamanism. That's this book right here. Shamanic Transformations, and Shamanic Healing, which is the other book I have with me today. Since 1995, Itzhak, he's bridging the spiritual and the practical wisdom of his indigenous teachers that have entrusted him with a forthright and contemporary approach. He's got things that help us with our stressful and our imbalanced modern times through classical and traditional shamanic teachings. Itzhak leads groups on healing expeditions to the Andes and the Amazon of Ecuador and the Yucatan of Mexico. He was initiated into the Circle of 24 Yachaks, am I saying that right?
Yep.
By his Quechua teacher in Ecuador and by Amazonian Kanamari Paje. Did I say that one right?
Paje, see?
Mm-hmm. Paje, okay. Amazonian Kanamari Paje. Excellent. He has also trained intensively with other elders from South and North America. He is the founder of shamanportal.org, a wonderful site for connecting shamans around the world, and the Andes Summit, and the co-founder of the New York Shamanic Circle. I could go on, but I'd like you to tell me more about yourself and some of these wonderful things you've done over the years. You have a very extensive experience. When did you really start? You started in 95 or before that?
Well, I started late. I never really thought of myself as a spiritual person or that I have any of these gifts at all. I started as a fine artist, and I became an advertising person, and then slowly around my midlife crisis, I started to feel that the world is a little not empty, but I felt empty. I felt like there's something missing in my life, and I didn't know what it was. I was born in Israel, in a kibbutz, a communist community, that was established in 1922 in Israel on the slope of a mountain, Mount Gilboa, that was written in the Bible. And my parents came from Belarus and Poland. They came before the wars, luckily for them and for us, but not for the rest of their family. And they were devoted atheists. They never really believed in spirituality or in religion, and they really instill a very strong beliefs in me that there is no God and there is no. We should be really free of that. What we did celebrate in our kibbutz is we celebrated the nature holidays. Spring, summer, fall, winter, very similar to the shamanic celebrations now. And we grew up, luckily, with nature all around us, the mountains, and we intimately knew every flower, every tree, every animal, every snake and Scorpio and coyotes. They run around there. And so we had a very intimate experience with nature when we grew up. But spirituality was not one of those things. And, but it's kind of interesting because a few years ago, before my trip to Poland, I went there to teach. one of my cousins in Israel sent me an article about our great-grandfather. And it turned out that my great-grandfather was a Kabbalistic rabbi and a healer himself, quite well known in Poland at that time. He devoted his life to the fight between good and evil. And this was exactly the time, a few years before that, that I started to work with possession and attachment and evil spirit, which is very dominant subject in the South American cultures. I was not aware of my Kabbalistic roots or about my grandfather, what he was doing, but it turned out that we probably had this, not probably, but most likely I am a continuation of his work.
Very nice. And give us a circa, that was like what, mid-90s or before that?
Well, I started in 95, that was like when I was in the in the beginnings of my 40s. I became very agitated. Became very depressed. I didn't know what is my next stage or steps would be. I mean, it wasn't like that nothing worked for me. I mean, I had a family and 3 children, and my advertising agency we won almost every award that there was in advertising business, but it was not really satisfying to me. I did not want to work for other people. Manipulation, and I felt very guilty about that, but I didn't have a conceptual place to put myself in, and that's when I read a book by Hank Wasserman, a very well-known shaman himself, who lives in Hawaii, and he wrote at that time, a year before, he wrote his first book on Hawaiian shamanism. It's called Spirit Walker. And that book I read from beginning to end, and I was really crying on the plane to Hawaii, because I finally met a person that had the same kind of questions about life, about our destiny, and why are we here. And he became a good friend of mine later on, and still. But that was like the moment of the time where I started to ask the questions, which is exactly the time that the Kabbalah is talking about, that in your 40s you're starting to walk into the orchard of wisdom, or to the forest. It's called the Pardes, and I mean, that was exactly on time, on schedule. But I didn't know that, because when you are in that process, you don't really know. And I'm sure that you and other people that listening, they probably have all those questions, but they don't have a place or concept to how to hold that the process that they are in. It's only when you're going on the other side of it that you really can see that you walked into that depth of the forest. And so that was the beginning of my journey. That was in 1995, and Hank was writing about a workshop he took with Michael Harner, which is the guy who actually started the renaissance of the shamanic movement. And because of that, when I came back to New York from Hawaii, I picked up a catalog from the New York Open Center, and here it was. There were Michael Harner was giving a workshop, so I took it, and I was so surprised that I have this ability to see and to bring information to other people, and it was so relevant to them. I got really, really excited about it. And I took a few more workshops with people that trained under Michael Harner. And then I took a workshop with John Perkins. And John Perkins, at that time, wasn't as famous as he is now. He wrote the Confession of Economic Hitman. You may not read that, about his life as an agent of the United States government, convincing people to find give them their treasures of the Amazon. But anyway, when he was talking about this trip to the Amazon, I really felt like I really need to go there. My gut was like, you got to go. And I didn't have money. I didn't have the time because I was running an advertising agency, and it's all about deadlines. So I was, I told my wife I have to go, and she says, "Are you nuts? Are you crazy? What are you doing? I mean, we don't have money, we don't have time. You're going to leave me here by myself for 2 weeks." And I said, "I don't know. I don't understand it, but I have to go," and I did. And there I met my teacher, Don Jose Joaquin Pineda, and then I went to the Amazon, and I worked with the Shuar people. I did ayahuasca for the first time, and I had visions and those visions that I had 22 years ago, this is really what now motivate me and gave me my life work in a way to preserve the indigenous wisdom, to preserve the Amazon, to bring that messages to the Western world, so we would prevent the catastrophe that we are experiencing all around us with global change and the political upheaval and all of that. This is years in the making, but the shamans there, they knew what's going on, and you may read John's books, but John was asking the shaman in the Shuar in the Amazon of Ecuador, how can he help them after they saved his life by using ayahuasca, and they said, "You don't need to help us. All you have to do is change the dream of your society, because your dream is what kills us." And so it's not that they need money or they need other tools that we have. What we need is to really change the dream that we have, the dream of this dream that destroy the earth.
Yeah, the dream of progress, kind of cutting down the Amazon and removing resources and taking them. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yes, it's about the dream of capitalism, the dream, right. the dream that we are here to we are the chosen people above all above any animal or plants, that we need to use all the resources of the earth to benefit ourselves, instead of learning how to live in harmony and sustainability with everything around. So really that's really my work is inspired by John Perkins and inspired by the shamans there, and inspired by what ayahuasca was telling me or showing me at that vision that I had there in 1997. And that's maybe bring us back to the ayahuasca, but that movement now that many people are so busy galloping gallons of ayahuasca for recreation.
Now. It's huge. What? It's blown up. It's huge.
Yes, and I have a lot of respect for ayahuasca, but I think that when people are using ayahuasca almost like beer, instead of learning the lessons of ayahuasca, and I think that if you experience a real ayahuasca journey and you can understand the messages that ayahuasca is sending you, you really need to work on that message. You can't just go and take another shot to overcome that message because you don't want to do that. You have to really take it seriously. And then a lot of the ayahuasca tourism and a lot of the activities of ayahuasca in the United States is really more for recreation. It's not, people are not equipped or they're not educated to learn the lessons of ayahuasca. There's no blame here, because part of it is the blame of the shamans themselves from Peru and from other countries or Colombia that are traveling around the world and profiting from the greed of the spiritual greed of the Westerners. They're experiencing their own money greed that we imported to them. So it's a very complex issue. But I think that people who are listening to this broadcast, I think that they really have to understand that every cup you drink have a price, and the price is the corruption of the indigenous societies by paying them huge sum of money, and then what really need to happen in that is that you drink once a year or twice a year, the most, because you want to have a vision, you want to have a direction for your life, and then you go and you do it. You go and you manifest that, and it may take you a lifetime to manifest your vision, and you don't need another cup.
So there's a few questions that arise from that. First, I want to praise you for bringing attention to our usage of our overusage, our overindulgence of substances in our culture. Like, more can always be better, and that's not necessarily true. And I was learned, like I learned in school here in the United States growing up, that we have a concept as Westerners called manifest destiny, which allows us to sort of plow under all of the things that are natural in order to get technology as far forward reaching as possible. And so maybe that was what we were talking about when we said, what needed to change, what John Perkins was discovering that needed to change the dream of manifest destiny.
Well, I think that what John is talking about is we have a dream, the Western dream, that we can do it on our own. So there's the American dream is a cowboy who ride on the horse into unclaimed land, the Wild West, and he kills all these Indians, he kills all of that, and he builds his own. He doesn't need to have a community. He created his own because he's the lonely rider, right?
Yeah, the Lone Ranger, right? Yeah.
Yes. So that is really the if you look at American society, is that I do it on my own. I don't give a damn what happened to other people. I walk into a country and it's empty. There are some wild people there, but they are not people. I mean, if you look at all the people who conquered the United States, that's exactly the philosophy, and that philosophy continues to be today. We need to build a dam. We have to build roads. We have to build hotels on sacred land. We have to build a pipeline or copper mines or silver mines. I mean, all of that there is no regards to the environment or to community. And I think that's dream. That dream of the strong man wins, the weak people lose. We don't have responsibility for them because they are lazy, because they don't have values that we have, because they don't believe in Christ or whatever it is they believe in. That dream is over, and we all know that. We all experience that because I believe that the rise of the renaissance of shamanism now in the United States and in industrial countries is because most people, young people at least, and people like my age that experience all of that, they know that all those institutions are corrupt. All these institutions no longer can serve the people themselves, but they serve the system. The corporation working for the corporation, they don't work for the people who works for them. The government work for the government, but not for the people who work for them. And today we have the best example of that. The grab as you can. It starts from the president of the United States that takes everything for himself. That is that dream. We call it dream, but John Perkins called it the nightmare, because this is truly a nightmare that we have, that we are taking from nature, taking all the resources for very short gain, without looking at the 7 generations ahead of us. That is, it's not sustainable. And then we see what's the results. The ice melting, the forests are burning, The earthquakes are more often. The storms are everywhere now, and with a larger force than ever before. And the temperature are rising all over the world. I mean, this June was the highest temperature month in history, of the recorded history. So that is the Western nightmare, and unfortunately, that is what third world countries and other world are looking to implement in their countries. And I believe, and I strongly believe, that the only way out of it is to go back into the value that indigenous people or shamanic society had, which is community, sharing economy, sharing a responsibility, having families and taking care of them, not just make sure that people don't get abortion, but to take care of the people who are alive. Yeah. And so all of those values, the shamanic tradition values, and I'm not romanticizing them. There is a lot of strifes and wars and other things like that in many indigenous countries. But the core value of it, that is our only way out, is the only blueprint that we have for our future. Because we know that what we believed before for all these thousands of years, now 2,000 years now, it's totally, they bring us to a dead end.
Absolutely. And I want to maybe share a personal experience that I had. Years ago, I experienced a dose of magic mushroom chocolate. And as I ate that and it was coming on, I was processing the idea that the chocolate was not fair trade. I looked at the packaging and I'm like, oh, it was not fair trade. And I had this entire vision of all these people picking chocolate that were just not treated fairly. And it ended up being a really emotional experience for me. And I, for a long time, have had this dream of like fair trade plants and medicines. And it's like, wow, that's where I want to go. And for me, that was a huge course correction. And it wasn't an easy vision. It wasn't like, oh, I'm tripping out and having a good time. It was like, oh, I'm really sad for the exploitation of peoples and medicines. And, you know, the people are just getting paid dollars a day or less, pennies a day to pick chocolate all day long in the sun, you know? And it's not what I want for my future, for my children.
Thank you for sharing that. It's a great example of awakening. It's a great example of changing consciousness around the world, and the more people that experience that, our world have some chance. You know, like the more people now experiencing it, and it was prophesied by the Inca in the eagle and the condor prophecy that starting in 1993, which is more or less the time that many of us woke up. Michael Harner started a little early. John Perkins started a few years before, but it's about that time that the new Pachacuti began, the new period of correction of time, which is they counted in 500 years groups started, which is the time where shamans are decided that it's time now to share their wisdom with the West, or the condor decided to share their wisdom with the West, to share their heart, and to receive also the teaching of the eagle. So it's a sharing time, Pachacuti correction of time, where the eagle and the condor will fly in the same blue skies together in dance of harmony. And it's basically the time of the return of the feminine energies, the return of the women, or the leadership of the heart instead of the leadership of the mind, and what's symbolized by the eagle. It's a beautiful time, and I think that we are all now awakening to that prophecy, which is a beautiful way to look at it, because you know, every person that wake up and if you think that something hit him, something terrible happened to him, but it's in a way, it's almost like mushrooms after the rain. You know, like the rain is falling, the energy all around us is changing, and people are starting to pop up, and they, in many ways, that's part of the reason why people wants to go and do ayahuasca now, because it's a way for them to reconnect with what nature is, what the secret of the matrix is, how we are all connected, and the plant medicine is a beautiful way of doing it if you don't abuse it.
Absolutely. So I want to jump on to this book.
Okay.
There's a picture in here that's really interesting. Now, do you do a lot of the artwork? Tell us about that.
Well, the cover wasn't. It's not my artwork. The inside. No. It's all done by one fantastic artist. This was chosen by my publisher, as they chose also the name of the books. And I didn't have much to say about that. But inside the book, I have an illustration that I try to illustrate the visions that I had, to give some kind of a glimpse to what I envision. And I have to give credit to that to one of my clients. I had a client who was dying of cancer, and only on the last visit that I had with him, he held my hand and he said, "Promise me that you will start painting again and draw this illustration in your book." And I couldn't say no. So I promised him that I will, and I did. And so I dedicated this drawing for one of my clients. He was an amazing person. He was a very famous filmmaker, and he had pancreas cancer, and it went very well. But one of the stories in this book is about the healing that he had, reconnecting with the part of his soul from the childhood that he let go of. It's called The White Dragon. And the story was that when I was doing limpia for him at the hospital, at the hospice over there, his soul as a white dragon came in, and it turned out, and it was very playful, and flying in the air and making a lot of jokes, and when I told him about that, he said that this white dragon was his favorite toy when he was young, and that came back to him. And he told me at that time he was hardly seeing, hardly able to move, but the dragon said that he's going to be alive for 5 more weeks.
Wow.
And his wife looked at me like I'm totally crazy, and she said, "You can't do that. I mean, he's already 3 months in this kind of situation. How can you say that he's going to be another 5 weeks? I'm totally exhausted." Well, 5 weeks to the date, he passed away. So his soul was not ready yet to go, and it manifested his freedom. His body was not there anymore. There was no use for the body, but the soul was strong. The soul was happy and playful. It was just an amazing experience, and I wrote about that in the book, because that book, The Gift of Shamanism, is a book about a book about the vision or how to use visions in healing. And so I give different examples of what is soul retrieval, and how you work with dreams, and
Yes.
How do you work with holograms, and all of those things. So, and shamanic journey work, and so I give the instructions how to do all of that, but I also give stories to teach the process through the stories. And that was one of the stories there. It's quite full of nuggets like that.
Excellent. So I didn't mention it yet, but it's probably somewhere in the annals of hours of podcasting I've done. But I've seen your teacher. He's also my teacher, Michael Harner. I met him while he was still alive about 7 years ago, about 7. And he taught the basics course to me too, and that was a really wonderful experience.
That's nice.
So I'm grateful that we have that lineage in common. And I wanted to ask you specifically about this particular photo. Go ahead and describe it. I'm holding it up for our listeners.
Well, this was actually a journey I had, ayahuasca journey I had with a Shuar. A Shuar is a tribe deep in the Amazon of Ecuador. This particular shaman is Daniel Wachapa. He's a fabulous, amazing washi, a shaman, or ayahuasquero. We call it now ayahuasquero, but they don't call themselves ayahuasquero. They call themselves shamans, because there's a difference between people who serve as ayahuasquero and the people who are actually doing healing. And as you can see, the healing that he did for me was, after drinking the ayahuasca, I lay down on the dugout canoe, and he was doing healing for me. And the way he was doing it, he was sending the two animals that he works with, which is the anaconda and the jaguar. So the anaconda, he sent through my anus, through my behind, to clear all my digestive system. And the thing about all of this vision is that it really happened. It happened in the visual, in the vision, but it's also, I felt all of it physically, but I also saw it. So he was clearing my intention, my digestive system with the anaconda that went through my body, and when it came to my throat, it blew all that dark cloud that you could see in this drawing.
Right.
And then the jaguar came from the top, from the trees, and he swallowed all of that negative energy and took it away. And you can say that I made it up, but it's not. It was truly there, because the next morning I was describing it to Daniel Wachapa, and he said, "Oh, just a day of work. This is the tools that I'm working. This is exactly what happened." But the most interesting thing that happened at that time. That was amazing by itself. Don't get me wrong, but. That after that energy came out of me, all that darkness came out, and the jaguar swallowed all of it. He put his mouth on my chest, and he sucked all the ayahuasca out, and I could feel how all the ayahuasca left my body, cell after cell, and it all came into his mouth, and my head totally cleared, like I never took ayahuasca before.
Wow.
And I was at that moment, before that, I was tripping, I was seeing all of those visions, but at that moment, after he sucks this energy out of my chest, everything gone, and I had the most clear experience of the universe, like I never experienced before. That's the power of a real shaman who is doing ayahuasca, instead of people who are just doing ayahuasca, that are ayahuasquero. In the Shuar tradition, the ayahuasca is served the shamans to be able to see within the person's body, to see where the poison arrows are hooked, where the emotional hooked are, where if there are any curses, or if there is any issues, or if somebody sends you a curse, and then that's what he's trying to pull out of you. And sometimes they suck it out of you and they come up with fish bones. Sometimes they come with stones. These are things that they don't have. I mean, you can believe it or not, but there were none around when he started to do this session. It's quite amazing. It's really hard to describe, because for people who never experienced that before, it sounds like a Hollywood movie, but it's absolutely true. And that experience, and then I did a few other sessions with them, and I think and that's what I wrote about the book. That in the book, that the ayahuasca sessions that I had with the Trevahr was really more like a school. They were teaching me about the universe, how the universe works, how the plants take the water, the whole idea of this mimosa, that how the water comes in and work with flow in the plants, and the sound of the music, the sound of the universe, the matrix that we are all connected with, and the responsibility of each of us for every action they do. Or we call it the string theory, but it's basically that. Right. So it was a very purposeful journey to teach specific classes. And I remember that in my second trip over there, I asked ayahuasca to, maybe they can make it shorter, because I wasn't sure that I'm coming back. I said, well, maybe now you can teach me the third session. Okay. And they said, no. You have to learn the first two sessions before. So it's beautiful. But again, it's beautiful because it's done by people who know, people who have that tradition for many years. They don't have shortcuts. They don't try to leave you alone for your experience, but they actually do healing as you go through that ayahuasca session.
Excellent. Would you exemplify and speak towards the art of soul retrieval, so that people understand that, and maybe also define limpias, if you can?
So soul retrieval is a term that shamans use to describe what happened to a person when part of his soul or her soul leave because of trauma, because of and trauma, you can define it in many different ways. Some people have traumas because their mother did not give them her tzitz exactly when they wanted it. Sometimes people their needs were not met when they absolutely need that. That could be a trauma. Some people traumas are because of sexual or physical or emotional abuse. Some people because of accidents. Sometimes because they witness an event that they cannot have any control over. There are many different reasons why people have traumas, and I personally believe that there is no one person that lives on this earth without any trauma. So when you talk about classical soul retrieval, the way Michael Harner was teaching it, it's only one way that certain section in the shamanic tradition are using this technique, but there are many different ways to retrieve soul. But in the Michael Harner classical or Sangre Hingeman classical soul retrieval, you journey into spirit, and you ask your spirit helpers, and that could be any either power animal or spirit in the upper world or spirit of nature or waka, to bring you information and show you the trauma, and then you bring it in and you blow that energy that agreed to come back into your energy body. You return that soul back. I have a little bit of a different experience because of my teachers, and they don't believe in that way at all. They don't do these kind of ceremonies, but I do. But I have a different take on that. Is that we all come, our soul arrive into our body at the age of between 4 and 5, as we are embryos in our mother womb. That is when our soul enter into the baby's body, and that at that time we are starting to form the imprints on our hands, the major lines of our hands, the fingerprints, and they don't change. That character, that life purpose or life mission do not change from the time you are 4 or 5 months in your mother's womb, which means that basically the soul enter into your body at that age, and it chooses all the teachers, all those people who are creating all those up evil and good evil, whatever it is that you're experiencing in your life, because you created that. They are your teachers to experience love, experience difficulties, traumas, and all that. So in my work, I teach people that the traumas is actually their road post. It's a way for the soul to realize itself and to reconnect with them, with the life purpose. And so I do a lot of work around that, recognizing what's your life purpose, recognizing what the traumas that you are experiencing are your choices, and the reason why you chose it is to get closer to your life purpose. And for some people, it's a little difficult concept to hold, because that means that all the trauma that you experience are of your making. But on the other hand, if you can hold that idea, and if you can take responsibility for that, then you might be able to experience freedom of choice of that, and you can find out what is your life purpose. And when you know what your life purpose is, it's a lot easier to move forward with your life with passion, because when you realize what it's about, then there's no stop, because you know what your purpose is. And I mean, I can give you my personal experience.
Sure.
that's in the book, so it's not like a secret. But when I was young, when I was a child, I really liked to talk a lot. You could probably hear that. And I love to share stories. I really love to tell stories. I'm fascinated with that. And I grew up in a kibbutz, and in the kibbutz we had one woman who were our mother for 16 kids, and she didn't have time to listen to all my stories and all my questions and why is that, and I tell you a story about that, and da 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 da. And one day she stood next to me and she said to me, "Itzhak, God gave us a certain amount of words. If you spend all these words, you'll die."
Oh, no.
Well, I was 6 or 7 at that time, and something in me knew that it's not true, but I was so shocked that I stopped talking.
Wow.
And not only that I stopped talking, but I started to feel like I don't have the right to talk. And that was the trauma. That was a trauma. That was a curse. That was everything you want to say, because my soul and my life purpose, as it is in my hand, is a person with a mission on a large scale, on a stage, on a large scale. So I need to be in my elements. I need to share stories. I need to talk. I need to bring mission or messages to people. But then it took me so many years, maybe almost like 40 years to get over it. And then when I started to do the shamanic work, I had to be in a circle and express my feelings and my ideas. And it was so hard for me because I believe that I have nothing to say and everything that I say is terrible, and I'm wasting people's time, and my words are wasting of God's words. And my heart was pumping and my palms were sweaty, and sometimes I pee in my pants because I was so nervous. I no longer do that because that's my healing. So I can tell you that my journey, my soul journey, was to assume my life purpose. And all those traumas that happened before is in order for me to bring myself into that mission. And it's an example, but it's example for all of us. And there's sometimes I do in workshops like that, I ask people to journey with 10 stones in their hands. And I ask them to embed each stone with one of the trauma and write down on a piece of paper under the stone what is the trauma that they experience. And then when they're done, I ask them to lift the stones and read all those traumas and see what is the theme that they discover when they lift all of it. And it's so amazing because you can see that there is a common theme that runs through all of those traumas. And that could be loss of power, abandonment, that could be lack of love, that could be I need to do something and I can't find it, things like that. Like, it's not the jobs that you're supposed to do, but it's the place where you experience your life from, or your work from. So when you discover the theme of your trauma, you can turn it around and you can see what your life purpose is. And it's a wonderful, wonderful exercise. And if you are a healer or if you're a shamanic practitioner, you're welcome to use this process, because it allows people to focus, to realize their life soul purpose. And in many cases, it takes away their doubts or their feeling that their ego wants to do it, but they should not be doing it, because this is their imprint of the soul.
So it's, to get clear on that, it's a visionary exercise in which people hold rocks in their hands, or they're weighed down by rocks? No,
they hold. So I ask people to bring 10 stones that they choose. And so they do 10 journeys for each of one of those stones. They hold it in their hand, they journey to the spirit animal and ask, what is that? Can you show me a trauma that I experienced? And then you are shown a time and space where trauma happened, and you bring that energy into that stone. And then you put it on the piece of paper. We have a candle in the center, and then you're creating a circle around that. So the candle is representing the soul, right? So after you finish doing the 10 journeys, and you write the trauma under the stone, you lift them all and you see what the theme is. And it's beautiful. It's an amazing, and I have to tell you something really funny. So I did it once many years ago in Israel, in the Dead Sea, in the desert there. And after that workshop, this guy ran after me and he said, Itzhak, I have to tell you something. I says, okay, why are you so excited after doing trauma work, right? And he says, Itzhak, you would not believe I found out why I'm an impotent.
Okay.
So his impotency was related to a trauma that he experienced in his childhood. He re-experienced it. He understood that. 2 years later, he had a son.
Wow, that's pretty excellent. Shamanism is equivalent to Viagra. It's excellent. If not better, shamanism is better than Viagra.
It's better because it's a long lasting. You don't have to take it every time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Man, I have some questions, and I'm not sure I want to digress into San Pedro or Chuma. Are you willing to share that stuff, or do you want to cover more details about this book?
Well, there are many different ways to connect with spirit, and some of them are, Trevahr Chuma or San Pedro or mushrooms, or there are many different ways to do it, and each one of them has a different flavor or different experience. Some people experience profound experiences with mushrooms but not with ayahuasca, and the other way around, and sometimes in different ways. But what I want to say about all of it is that I personally believe that you want to do plant medicine in the place where the medicine grows, because each plant has its own spirit, its own vibrations, and sometimes you want to have an equal equilibrium between all of them, so they resonate in the same vibration, and it's always better to do ayahuasca where it grows by the river with another plants of ayahuasca next to it. You want to always want to do Wachuma in a place where it grows in the Andes or in wherever it grows, that the vibrations are there. And I'm lucky because that's the way I do it. I don't do it anywhere else. I don't do it in herb. I mean, I try to do it here in New York, but it doesn't have the same effect. It doesn't have the same feeling, and you're not feeling the same connection with spirit. So I prefer to do it in places where it grows. And to tell you the truth, there are many different plants that are not ayahuasca or San Pedro, or that they grow in your area for sure. And I think that we need to learn to rely on plants and trees and barks that are in our areas that we can grow or we can use there, instead of going to other lands to experience the same thing.
Beautifully. Well said. I've been an avid cultivator of Trichoceres San Pedro species here in San Diego, and I even when I lived in Arizona and in Las Vegas, and I've always agreed with that statement, those statements you're making about being a guardian. If the medicine doesn't want to grow in the area where you're doing the work, then you don't mean to be using the medicine, because it has to be a sort of a symbiosis, the relationship of the plant to the steward, to the environment. If these things aren't all in right practice, there's no reason to do something that is sort of sacrificial and sacred.
Yeah, I mean, and some people think that I'm that it's not fair for me to say it because I travel a lot, and they don't have the money to do it. But I believe, personally, maybe I'm a snob, but I believe that it's probably better to do less ceremonies and do it in the right place than to do so many ceremonies, spending $100 on a weekend, hundreds of dollars on a weekend, and not going to Ecuador, to the Amazon. I usually don't say Peru because Peru is a little corrupted from my point of view. But I think that it's probably better to do it once, and to do it in the right place and from the right mind and with the right vibrations, than to do it like 7, 8 times, 10 times in the places where the police cars and the garbage trucks are pulling in exactly in the right time that you don't need it. So, and what kind of vibrations you have, what kind of, it's all about vibrations when when you are doing ayahuasca, because everything talk to you. The trees talk to you, the land, the river, the frogs, the cicadas, the jaguar, they are all talking to you, and then that really create all these beautiful weaving of visions that comes with it. So if you do that in a basement in Brooklyn or in other places like that, then it doesn't have the same kind of experience, and then you're left with the need for more, because your soul probably know that it's not getting what it needs.
Right. It's almost like what I'm hearing you say is that set and setting are sort of nutrition for the plant spirits.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there is no separation between the plants and where it grows.
Yeah.
And it all comes from the same kind of energy, like even with food, they tell you, a lot of nutritionists telling you to eat just local food, not that food that was shipped from another country, frozen, and bring it here, because it doesn't work with our own system, our own body system. So, and that's really what I was talking about in that third book that I wrote there, the Shamanic Healing. This is all about that. It's about how you heal your body with all of those ancient shamanic healing techniques that and elements that we use, and it does explain in a very detailed way what La Limpia is. And La Limpia or the Limpia process or ceremony is a very common healing technique that shamans in the Andes are using, but not just in the Andes, in many other places. They call it in a different name maybe, but it's the use of plants and sugarcane rum and aqua florida, the perfume, the eggs, the rocks, the candles, but it's all based on clearing the negative energy sphere that is around us, and in rebalancing the negative ions with the positive ions, or so the idea behind all of it is that similar to the crust that we have around our earth that protect us from the cosmos, right? The atmosphere. So we have this invisible shield protecting the earth, but we also have invisible shields that protected us. And each of us is surrounded with an egg form shell that is around us. The attempt that shamans do in Limpia is to clear that energy. And that energy sometimes is full of traumas and negative energies and curses and envies and attachment and all of those things that we know exist in the shamanic tradition. Each shaman does it maybe in a little different way, but the principles are the same. So the first thing is to remove this energy, to decrease the amount of positive ions all around you, or the negative energy, and then to increase the negative ions, which is what we call chi, to bring it this balance, and then to bring new energy and to extract the negative energy that already stuck in the body through the eggs, and then bring good energy with the flowers and the perfume, and then seal it with the healing stones, and creating a shield of good vibrations with music instruments, and then creating that to rebalance the body. And many people experience an amazing healing and relief from a lot of their issues. physical, emotional, and emotional and spiritual. They live it in a totally different way when they come.
Excellent. And so I think that what we have in our culture here in North America and in the United States is a lot of people using sage, and that might be sort of a similar thing for our listeners who are trying to understand a little bit about La Limpia. Is sage?
Yeah. Well, there is no sage in Ecuador. So what they do is they use different plants or different trees to do that. And but what's important is not the plant itself, although each plant has its own medicine. But the smoke is an antibacterial. It kills the bacteria, viruses around you, and that's what's really important, is to be able to smoke. So there are many different way people are using it. Some people use it. Some people use copal. Some people use pine. Some different plants, or they blow fire on you to kill all of that. But it's about cleansing or removing negative energy and let it go up in the sky. The fire is the element of change or transformation. And that's really take it. So one of the things that I also write in the book is that every element that we are using in Limpia or in any shamanic healing is not the fancy of the shamans. It's a tool that is generational proof of using it, because everything has a spiritual meaning and everything has a physical meaning or scientific meaning to it. And there is a very simple reason for that, is that a shaman's reputation is based on the success of the healing, and you cannot afford not to have a good result. And so you don't use anything that does not work, because you want the clients to come back. And after a while, if you're a bad shaman and people are not healed, they don't come to you anymore. So you have to find tools that are working. And those tools that are written in this book, and those shamans in Ecuador they're using, they're thousands of years in experiment. They work. And, the people that I brought a few weeks ago to Ecuador to work with those shamans, they were the witnesses of that. It looks like so amazing, like a magic, but they are not. Everything has a specific medical, scientific reason to use, and spiritual, and they create a change in people that they cannot really believe.
Right. So fascinating. I mean, I've listened to John Perkins do a shamanic transformation lecture, and some of the things he described as transformation that people would go through when they were down there doing that work is amazing. And I have heard some local anecdotal stories, even living in America Southwest, different states, Arizona, Nevada, and California, about fantastic healings, physical healings of amazing stuff from friends and people who just know me acquaintedly.
Well, I'm one of those people who had this transformation, that John Perkins is probably talking about, because it really changed my life. I came as an advertising man full of guilt, and I found my calling, and I founded Shaman Portal, and I founded the Andy Summit and the New York Shamanic Circle, and I wrote books, and I'm talking to you with all about exactly the same message that I received 22 years ago, about sharing that wisdom, learning, helping people to understand where they are, changing the society, changing their dream. So we are all in it, and we are all, one of the things that Ipupiara, my shamanic teacher from Brazil, from the Uruuawu tribe, used to say to me is that we are all shamans. Every person on this earth is a shaman. you don't have to be doing this work, but we are all built, our DNA is to be healers, because we all dreams, because we all have premonitions, we all have the ability to touch, to listen nicely to other people. We all have the ability to give water to when a person needs to drink, and to listen with love to another, and to hug. All of those are the symbols of a shaman. And you know, we're always talking about women and becoming a shaman because they are more in tune with their intuitive energies. We all have that. I think that part of it is that our society never really honored that that men too, and that it's okay for the men to have this feminine energy in them, and our healing abilities are essential for our own survival as a human species, because we need to heal our children, we need to heal ourselves, we need to heal our communities, and we have all these tools. Many people in our society today, they don't want to take this responsibility. They want other people to heal them. They don't believe that they have that, and that really makes it very difficult because it takes the power away from them. And so my work is really to tell people, listen, you are shamans, you are healers. You have to take responsibility for that. You have to own it, that you, in the way you go and shop in your store, in the way you talk to other people, in the way you are behaving in the world, you have to own that you are a healer. You can't just be a rough man or a person that is irresponsible, because that's not really truly you. So if we can all, and the listeners, if I'm not talking about you because I'm sure you do, but if you have a chance of healing other people in any way, through listening, through talking, through hugging, through giving food, take responsibility and become it. And I think that it will be just so wonderful if all our community, all our people in the United States and everywhere else will decide that they are healers, and healers cannot harm other people.
And so it is. All my relations, thank you.
Yes.
That's very powerful. And it's funny, I think you're not just a shaman, you might be a mind reader, because that was going to be my question. You answered it without me even having to ask. The question was posed in the book, who can become a shaman? And you answered it before I could even ask it.
Oh, thank you.
So
it's a very practical book. It's
a beautiful book. Which is your favorite book that you have in your series for beginners, for people that are just starting on their path?
I mean, it depends on where. I mean, I think that they probably, if they're just beginning the whole concept of visions that heal, that is the gift of shamanism, because that's the gift that we all were given. It's from the email that I get from a lot of people all around the world. What I'm getting is that it's really confirmed a lot of those feelings that people have about themselves, about their abilities, about the vision, about the dreams that they had. It was, for many people, they said that they finally can say that they are not totally crazy. If it happens to you, it happens to me, and it's fine. It's normalizing it. I think that it's very important. And I also give the concept of the direction how to do shamanic journeys and how to access that ability. And I mean, I'm teaching that in of course in my workshops and all, but it's something that we are all experiencing anyway throughout our dreams, through our visions, through our daydreams. So it's a good introduction, and the shamanic healing is for people who may want to become healers themselves, or if they have, or if they want to know more the techniques of how to do. or if people who are sick or people who have problems and they want to learn how the shamanic tradition really looking at them and how they can heal themselves in many ways. That is it's a good description. So we have in this book you have stories about healing, because through the stories I teach the technique. But then I have also the techniques themselves. So move this for here, do this for her, like all of that, the technical part. And I actually wrote this book because when my teacher died, Ipupiara, I really felt at loss. And he was I worked with him for 12 years, and I wanted to write down all these techniques, because I don't know how long I'm going to be around, and I don't want it to disappear or to not to be used, which is what really happened a lot, that old shamans or sick shamans dies, and they take with them a lot of the wisdom, because they don't have apprentices or people to pass it on the torch to. Luckily, I became an apprentice for a shaman who did not have sons, and so he was teaching me a lot. And in many ways, he was teaching me as a white person, because a lot of his people in his community didn't want to do that because it's too hard. It doesn't make enough money. It's very primitive. So he saw a person who's so interested in that and willing to do that. So he passed it on to me, so I can pass it on back to other people. And in many ways, that's part of why I'm doing the Shamanic Andes Summit, because what we do there is we bring all the shamans, and not all, but 10 shamans from the Andes to one place. And two of those shamans' grandchildren, because they came to the summit, they committed to become the Yachaks. They become the shamans as their grandfathers do. And it was an amazing thing. And to see how they accepted their destiny, how they accepted their role in the community and in their life to become shamans, and not just one of them is a banker and one of them is a web designer. So maybe they don't going to drop it all, and one of them is an auto mechanic. So they may continue to do their work, but they are committed now to continue to do their parents' and grandparents' work. And one of them gave us an incredible speech at the end of the summit last year. He said that he used to live with his parents here in New York. He was like dressed like a punk, like shaved hair and tattoos and black t-shirt and pants that goes up his ass, and all of that. Like he came like, I'm a cool guy. I don't get all that crap stuff. I just helped my grandfather. Blah, blah, blah. And 9 days later, this man stood up with a poncho, with a hat, with a crown, with feathers, with all the regalias. And he gave us the most amazing speech, emotional speech. He said that for years he didn't like what his father represent, and that he always thought that it's primitive. And he realized how important his grandfather is in transforming people's life, and he wants to do that too. And he's going to take now, and he's going to become serious about that. It was just, we were all crying, because to hear it from a punk to it was amazing. And then he showed up for this summit again, but this time you could see that something changed in him. There was a spine, there was a energy of knowledge and power, and I let him do healing for me too. And he was amazing in doing the Olympia. all of that energy that was going against his culture, against his primitive indigenous resentment, all of it came to the healing now. And it was an amazing experience to feel that energy in his song, in his way of his doing the limpia with the leaves. It was, you could feel that he is there. He's going to be holding space for the next generation and maybe for his grandchild. It was just a really amazing experience. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to, on one hand, to bring the eagles or the gringos, the people who are coming from all over the world to experience that teaching and the wisdom. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, also to help the people who are doing it now in Ecuador, a place of honoring, a place that they understand their value, that they don't need to become bankers or web designers or real estate brokers, that they can hold that ancient tradition and continue to do this work, and they can make money doing it, and we pay them well to come for the summit, to do the healing. So they understand that next year they're going to get paid more, and that really helps them to keep up, not to give up on this old tradition. Because a lot of people in the West, that says, "Oh, why do you have to pay them? They do the spirit world, the spirit work." But you can't pay the rent. You can't pay your life expenses if you don't get paid. And so this summit is really about supporting them. Emotionally, spiritually, and but it's a lot about financially, so they can continue to do this work. And it is very important for us, because without them doing the work, all their wisdom is gone, disappear.
Tell the listeners a little bit about your summit and what dates are set and which ones just passed and when the next one's going to be.
So we always we did two summits, one in 2018 and one is in just a few days ago in June, and we always aiming it to Inti Raymi. Inti Raymi is the solstice in South America. It's the winter solstice because everything is upside down, right? It is the most important holiday or celebration. It's a month long, but the most important day is the 21st. So we always come a few days before. So it's going to be June 15th to June 23rd. It's a 9 days, 8 nights in Ibarra, which is up in the Andes, in a beautiful, beautiful hacienda. That can host all of us. This year we were 80 people. Half of them were people from outside of Ecuador. And we had people who came from 15 different countries. And they all bounded in amazing, they created the most beautiful hot society community. And we have 3 days of master classes where each of the 10 shamans explain, teach what they do and why they do it. And so it's an hour and a half or 2 hours of classes where they do demonstrations. They teach the secrets of, shamans usually don't do that, but they teach you why they do it and how they do it and why each of these plants and why each of these rocks and why each of these trago. It's really fascinating. And then we have 3 days of healing, and most of the healings are done in the shaman's home. So in other words, they're not doing it in a classroom or in a hotel room. Right. We take them to the shaman's home so they can actually see how the family lives and how the shamans can use their gardens, to use their plants and to use their resources. It's beautiful and amazing experience. And then we have at night we have 3 nights of ceremonies of plant medicine. We have ayahuasca, San Pedro, and we had sweat lodges. And those are done by the shamans who participate in the summit. This is their tradition, and in their tradition. And then we have trips to dance with the Inti Raymi with the biggest celebration in Cayambe at the top of the mountains, with like this year where there were like maybe 5,000 people there dancing and singing. And what really was beautiful this year is last year they announced our visit, but this year they announced our visit, and they announced what countries we came from, and we marched through the altar in the center, and it was just really amazing. And then we have trips to the lakes, Lake Mohanda, on the top of Mohanda Mountain, which is one of the most beautiful. It's like you think about Tibet or something like that, on the top of the mountain. And then we went to visit another Quikocha, which is another lake, which is breathtaking, where you can see 7 different volcanic mountains all around you.
Wow.
And then, if you are lucky, because if it's cloudy, you can't. But it was a beautiful day. And then we have a trip to waterfalls and to the market in Otavalo. And we have fire ceremonies and sharing and talking to integrate and to understand what issues came up for you, because it's all about healing. It's all about for you to transform you, to move forward, and people go through sometimes very difficult emotional things. So we work through that, and it's an immersion trip. I don't think that there is any trip like that, because most of the time people go and visit shamans, and the shamans do ceremonies, but they don't explain what they do. They don't teach you. Here, not only that they teach you, but you experience what they do, and you understand deeply what their wisdom here is, and it's really changed people's life. It's just a really powerful. So next year is going to be again in the same way on June 15th to June 23rd, and we decided to add one more element there. So one day we're going to invite the Ecuadorians who does not believe in limpia or shamans or in their primitive culture, ancestral. We are inviting locals and people from Quito to come and experience those healings by the shamans. We are sponsoring it. And the idea is to bring locals to meet us, to intermingle with us, to share ideas with us, to see that the world around us is very interested in their ancestral wisdom and healing, and to create a movement in Ecuador that is more favorable to indigenous cultures, which is very, very important to create that kind of atmosphere in Ecuador, because a lot of people in Ecuador poo-poo all those ancestral wisdom. So there's a purpose, there's multi-layer purposes of this summit. Luckily this year, the largest television station in Quito came and made a beautiful news piece on us in the main news. And we had the largest newspaper in Ecuador came, and they made a half-a-page article about the summit. And we have many people from many radio stations, television stations from the area that came and did a wonderful job in describing what it is. So I hope that it will be not just white people coming to Ecuador, but it also will be Ecuadorian who come to meet us, so we can create the real vision of what the eagle and the condor is, to fly in the same sky together in dance of harmony.
That is a very powerful and heartwarmingly ambitious, exciting event that's coming. When can people buy tickets for the next year? 2020, is it?
It's 2020, and it's at theandysummit.com.
Cool. And then there's tickets available now, even now?
No,
Not yet.
not yet. Let me give me time to rest. We don't even have prices yet for the next year, but probably soon. I mean, they can put their name in to receive the newsletter. So I think that would be good too. Or they can email us, and we will put them on a waiting list. We're kind of limited by the amount of people in that hotel. They have only 100 people, so we are 80. So, but I think that we can always create more. But it's good to, if you have intention, and I invite you to come. It's amazing. Just send us an email, and I will put you on the list to be there. It's really amazing. And I also do other trips to Ecuador. This in January, I'm planning a big event on a private beach, and which with the details are not very clear yet. And then I take a group to work with
January is the summertime over there, yes?
Yes, it's the beginning of summer. So right after New Year, we're going to work with 3 of the shamans, my teachers in the Andes, and then we're going to be there for 6 days. We're going to go and do some hiking to see the condor flying in Antizana, this beautiful cover mountain with the snow. And then from there, we'll go all the way down. We're going to fly all the way down to the Sequoia or the Sicopai, which is a tribe deep in the Amazon. We have to fly to another city, and then 10 hours by canoe to do ceremonies there and to learn from the elders. And again, like I would go to the most original, unspoiled places to really experience where this medicine came from. And they do it in a very beautiful way. I was there already 2 years in a row. That will be the 3rd year that I go there. And the thing that's so beautiful about it is that they devoted a night before the ceremony to cleansing of your system with a special plant that you drink. So it's a awakening ceremony, a clearing ceremony, a renewal ceremony it's called. And that is the preparation to do the Yahe, which is what they call it. And so the Yahe ceremony is not violent. It's really more about opening the heart. It's about connecting with the cosmos and the universe. And their Icaros are one of the most beautiful that I ever heard. It's almost like they are weaving the sounds of the universe together to create amazing structure of harmony all around you. And it's we had 4 shamans singing, and each one of them and all of them together creating this amazing. So it's just the background of your Yahe ceremony. There's nothing that can replace that. No hotel room in San Diego, or no other place in even in nature in the United States. But that's the beauty of working with people they just didn't learn it last year. They do it for thousands of years.
Right, thousands. Yeah. It's generational. It's in the DNA.
Yeah, and one of those guys is 106.
Whoa, really? Wow.
One of them is 106. One is 97. One is 87. The youngest is 50.
That's pretty amazing. That's so amazing. And that's, it keeps coming to me to tell you that the stuff you're talking about that you are often referring to as primitive, or you're describing people as referring to it as primitive, like that punk from Western culture that came down to learn from his grandfather. It's not primitive. We just don't have the tools yet. It's unincorporated ancient technology. We can't measure what these Icaros are really doing yet.
I think that science is getting very close to it. That we know now that sound is healing. That what we do, what we heal, is through sound. And we know that everything is sound. Everything is vibrations. Everything is movement of particles. That's the common knowledge in the shamanic tradition, which is basically now what you talk about quantum physics and all of that, quantum mechanics. Yes. So it's the science will find explanation to that. I'm waiting for science to find out why do I see holograms. I see spirit on a regular basis. I'm working with spirit, but I don't have a proof except that everything that I see is true. But I can't really, I don't know exactly how it happened. And now I asked brain researcher from Weizmann Institute to do a search in my head to see where it's coming from. He said, well, we can see where in the brain it works, but we don't know why. We don't know how. We know that it happens, but we don't know how. And it's not that it's just that because the technology is too primitive. They don't, but one day they might will. We know that through our visions, we can see into an ancestral wisdom. We can see. For me, it's every day because that's what I do for work. I see people, I see spirit, and I talk to them, and I bring information to people. But for many people, it sounds like crazy stuff. But and scientists, the way I believe that it is that those holograms or those spirits are in just a different consistency of matter that for some reason I'm able to or you are able to process in the same way that dreams do. So, but we don't have a way to quantify it, to find out exactly how it works. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And that researcher that I took, that was so skeptic about all my stories, I invited him to do shamanic journeys, and he said, "Oh no!" I said, "Well, you're so skeptic. Let's just try it." So we tried, and his power animal arrived, and he gave him answers that he did not even imagine that are possible, and he changed his mind and is now he's in the book. There is a quote of him in the book. He said that science need to understand that we have to put another elements in our equation, which is mystery.
Very kind. Yes, that's
very beautiful. Because all these smart asses, the scientists who say that this doesn't exist, they don't take that in account. That one of those things is mystery, and mystery doesn't mean that you don't have explanation. It means that we don't know what it means or how it all happened. But the mystery really drives us all.
Mm-hmm.
It's all around us all the time. And we have to be open to that all the time.
I always remind myself to, when I say great spirit, to say great mystery, because they're one and the same. They're sort of yin yang combination.
Yeah. In the Kichwa, it's called Hatun Pacha Kamak. It's the great mystery of the cosmos. Right, the Pacha is the cosmos, right? So So it's not just, it's everywhere in the cosmic makeup of the universe, and it's everywhere. It's what makes the universe, and there's no, which is in many religion, or many no religion, in many spiritual practices, that's the idea, that there is the great mystery, or the one that you can't say his name, because it's so big, it's so amazing, that everything happened because of that, connection. So yeah, that's a belief system that is in many traditions. But a lot of the things that we take for granted in shamanism, like the upper world, lower world, middle world.
Mm-hmm. What is that face? What does that mean?
You talk to the people in the jungle, and they tell you, what are you freaking talking about? Uh-huh. They don't have that same belief system. They are more practical than what we think. They believe in the Pachamama, they believe in the sky, but they don't make it like that hierarchy that we have, like the Michael Harner system.
Right.
It's very much, and I think that's sometimes it's because in the United States it's a little dangerous to think that all shamanism is have upper world, lower world, and middle world, and then all shaman drum. Because if you don't have a drum, you're not a shaman. Do you know what my teacher once told me? He's a real shaman, so don't worry. But he came to me one day and he said, "Itzhak, do you have a drum?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Could you teach me to drum?" So, because in the Quechua tradition, you have a drum, but you don't drum for journey work. You just journey. You don't have power animals like that. You just have the anaconda, you have the jaguar, you have the puma, or you have the condor. I mean, it's obvious. You don't have to do a journey because these spirits are all around you. So a lot of the construct that the Michael Harner school implemented in the United States, in many ways, you have to question that, because, and not that it's not true, it's true, but it's true for one part of people who practicing shamanism. And in many ways, there is a lot of people in the United States that say that if you don't drum, you're not a shaman. If you don't do soul retrieval like Sandra Ingerman does, then you're not a shaman. If you're not doing upper world, downward, sideways, that's not shamanism. But I think that it's very important to realize that every culture practices shamanism differently. And they do it because of their own natural condition, because of their own story, mythology. They practice pretty much the same beliefs that you have the Pachamama, or the Mother Earth, which is wonderful. That's the giving the feminine powers, and but even that, sometimes it's like in some cultures they think that the sun is a female energy, and sometimes they think that the moon is a male energy. Like in the Quechua tradition, the moon is a male and female. And I think that this is so beautiful, that story they were telling, because their livelihood is depending on the harvest, on their agriculture. So they plant the seeds in full moon. And do you know why they plant in full moon? Because then the light of the moon, the sperm of the light, is fertilizing the seeds of the earth.
Fantastic.
Isn't that beautiful?
It's beautiful.
Isn't that that image of the connection between the energy of the moon, the sperm, the white light that comes down into the earth to fertilize the seeds and the plants that they are planting. So there is also a reason, of course, because at that time there is the water pressure, or the water connection between the earth, and it's more fertile, right? Because of the connection of the moon. The moon is stronger, so there's a more chance for the plants to grow. But the teaching, the beauty of the story that is connected to their agriculture, the way they live, it's all feed each other. So in every culture, shamanism is practiced differently. There's no one thing that is right or that is wrong. And it's definitely not unified. Thank God that it's not McDonald's, because there's no franchising in the shamanism. Every culture does the hamburger in a different way. And practice it in a different way. And that's what makes it so beautiful. And I think that for our tradition, from where we come, we really have to come from a place of honoring all of those traditions, and learn from each of them, and not to be so stubborn to think that all shamanism is core shamanism or Michael Harner's system. It's very, very important. Yeah. I mean, that's that's one thing that I did get this summit was that this one woman was saying that this is not shamanism because we didn't do journeys.
Right. Okay.
Because we didn't do talking stick the way she's used to.
Right.
Because people get in that mode of that this is how it should be, and if it's not that, then those shamans that practice it for thousands of years, they're not real shamans.
Well, it's funny because no disrespect, I love Michael Harner, and his energy in the spirit world now that he's not in the body is a lot more gentle and is more teacherly, in my opinion. And he's able to say and do things that he was never able to say and do things while society was looking at him, the man versus the spiritualized version of himself. But he is kind of the old McDonald of shamanism. He and McDonald's is a franchise. In so many ways, the Center for Shamanic Studies, or the Foundation for Shamanic Studies up in Northern California, was a franchise of shamanism. The first.
Yes, and Michael was an anthropologist, and so he came to shamanism from the more of the academic point of view. And although he did try ayahuasca with the Shuar, and he wrote about that with the Hibaro, his book. You should probably read it. But he created an academy. An academy is the wrong spirit for shamanism, because the teaching of shamanism is one-on-one, and each person move in a different time and in a different energy. You can't teach it in a classroom and demand that people will take basic, and then 2 days and 3 days and 2 weeks and 3 weeks and 3 years and 5 years, and then give them a certificate, because I never got a certificate.
All right.
I would never even imagine to get a certificate. All I got was a crown.
What did you get? A crown?
I got a crown. Yeah, you want to see that crown? No,
yeah.
the crown is the initiation. So, but you don't get a certificate. But when you teach shamanism, you have to understand that you can't teach shamanism as academic course, because it's totally defined the spirit of shamanism. It's about experience, and what Michael was trying to do, and I think that he did an amazing job. I actually give him a lot of credit, because he mobilized so many people who are otherwise would not be doing this work, including me, and including Hank Wasserman too. So he was a grandfather in that way, but maybe the organization didn't move with more of the opening of the democratization of shamanism.
Right.
I remember that one time I wanted to do a course with them, and I was already doing this work for a long time, and where they say, well, you did the basic, but you didn't do the 2 years. I said, I need to do the 2 years. She says, yes. So I didn't do it. Maybe it was good because one thing about me is that I never went to school to learn anything. So I'm much rather invent everything on my own. That doesn't stop me to win all the advertising award that there is, and all the showing in galleries and museums and all of this thing. I'm an autodidact, so I really can't sit in class and people tell me what to do or how to think, because one of the things about working with shamanism, and that's the power of it, is the ability to be the creator, to listen to spirit, and not to have a limitation that is put upon you by people who want to either control you or to make you think in one way or the other. So when I teach Power Animalist, sometimes I teach it in a way that Michael was teaching me, but I also teach it in a way that is like what Ipupiara would say. Just close your eyes and what animal came to your mind. So there are many different ways of doing it instead of just being strict, because a lot of the times when I was trying to teach the Michael way, I had 80% success because people were so afraid that they will make mistakes. And I told them that, listen, spirit do not make mistakes. The spirit wants you to want to come to you. People want this. The spirit are there for you. You're just afraid to meet them. So just make them up. And why do you make things up? You make things up because spirit tells you to make them up. Otherwise, why do you make something else up? So that is very important for people who are entering into the shamanic world to understand. You have to listen to your spirit. You can't listen to Michael Harner's spirit or anybody else's spirit. You really have to tune to your story, to your narrative, to your education, to your culture. It doesn't come from somebody else's instructions.
That's powerful. I'm letting it sink in.
And I'm not saying that you have to make things up, like you have to sit down and just like,
Right. No, it reminds me of your story about the white dragon and your friends passing.
Oh yeah. That was amazing because this man at the age of 9 or so, they were told not to play around with imaginary friends. And the imaginary friend was the white dragon. I did not know it when he came, but that's what he said after. But it just shows you that spirit, that power animal or spirit guide that he had all these years was there. He was just not allowed to access it or allow himself to access it. And it just came to celebrate his life at the very end. And he gave him another 5 weeks. Isn't that amazing?
That's just powerful. That's healing in so many ways. Like that.
Oh,
that acknowledgement of that 5 weeks is healing.
Yeah. He was crying. He was because he connected to that. I mean, you're talking about soul loss, right? So you're talking about a person who lost the ability to imagine or to make make magic. And he was again, he was a filmmaker. He was a very famous filmmaker, but he did the documentaries. He didn't do fantasy because fantasies is not allowed. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Do you understand the pain that he had for not allowed to be using his creative juices and to rely on his white dragon all his life just to have a glimpse of it at the end of his life? That's painful.
Yeah. Well, honor to your friend's spirit as it transforms into something more like the dragon and flies freely.
Well, I believe that this dragon is continued to create joy and celebration for him in the other world. We don't really die. That our soul continue to live until it enter into another body to manifest another teaching. But maybe that was his lesson. His lesson was not to listen to people who are trying to squash your creativity or to try to teach you to be right, to fit in with the culture,
Right.
but that's happened. He was the most amazing, beautiful person. We fell in love the minute I saw him. I looked in his eyes and I knew his soul. I didn't meet at that time the dragon. I wish I did then.
That's beautiful. The life's purpose sort of fulfilled itself at the very end there. So people can reach out to you through shamansportal.org and the andessummit.com. What other places are you out there?
Well, they can go to my personal website where all my schedules and all my teachings are listed, and they can read articles, and they
Buy your books?
and they can buy the books. It will make my publisher very happy. Well, many people think that you are making money from the book. I make about $1.13, so it's really it really doesn't matter for me. No, I mean it's nice because the books, which is so beautiful, because the book really do reach people and open their heart, and they reconfirm a lot of their beliefs and give them so much encouragement to do their work. But it's all these are very also very practical. You can use that for your own healing and for healing others. That if you use the processes that I'm listing there. Like I said, that I wrote it so I don't have to teach it anymore, so people can take it.
I'm looking at your bio photo on this one. It's great. You seen the bio photo there?
Yeah, that was a little younger. Yeah.
And it's funny that even on the back of the Gift of Shamanism, we're even talking about how you grew up with the kibbutz in Israel. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Really great story, by the way. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I think there's one thing that is so important, so interesting to see, is that a lot of people who are entering into shamanism in their midlife or so, they have a beginning in farms, in nature. They had a connection when they were young with nature that when they grew up, they gave up to be like everybody else in the cities, to have a profession, to make money, and they were cut off. And then they reached the age of 40 or around that age, around time, and their souls start to yearn to something else, to remind them their experiences they had in their childhood. And so the wind and the trees and the flowers and the smells are starting to awaken them into returning into nature. And I think that that's really what happened, is we are re-remembering our first encounters with nature, with the miracles of life. And our soul seek that. Our soul needs that to be whole, to be complete. And I think that a lot of people that this age, they feel that calling, and then it's almost like a magnet that pull them into that life again. And you know, when I go to the Amazon now, I feel more at home than I feel it in New York.
Nice.
I feel like I'm coming home, you know, because our nature is to be in nature. Our nature is to be surrounded by all these negative ions, all this chi that is flowing from the trees and from the water, and from it makes us feel whole as human, as an animal, you know. It's a beautiful healing. It's a fantastic, and we need that. We have to go back to nature, you know, like that's one of the most important aspects of shamanic healing, is to be connected to the elements, to connect to the water, to the fire, to the air, to the earth, to be immersed with that, not to be disconnected like we do, like walk barefoot. So you have a connection to the earth, to the negative ions, so the electricity can go down into the earth. We carry so much negative energy, which is positive ions, and in our body, and that's created a lot of sickness in our body.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful message to leave our listeners with. So it's to return to nature and to be in the elements and the flowing chi of nature.
And to remember that nature and everything that is around us, or the environment, you can't take it for granted. We have to be the keeper of that earth, and we have to be the keeper of that wisdom, because there are people who are very short-sighted because of the way they brought up, because of their way they believe that they can exploit the earth and the people who live there, and the indigenous people. But so yes, of course, enjoy the earth, but remember that you are not there just to enjoy. You are also here as a keeper of those treasures that we have, and not take it for granted that will be here for your next generations. You know, I'm very worried about my grandchildren. I'm going to have a 6th grandchild soon, and I'm worried about them and their children and my others. You know, in the next generations, what are we leaving them for? Would they have to be? Would they have to ask, what is this toy? What is it's called elephant? What is it? I don't see it. Oh, that's like the mamuta, you know, like that's you know, it's all disappearing. So we have to be very activist. That's an article that I wrote recently about that we have to stop. We have to stop being dreamers. We have to be in action, a doer, not just dreamers. Dreamers is nice, but dreamers is not enough. And shamans never are dreamers. They dream, but they act. They make sure that things happen. Because without making things happen, there's no role for a shaman. The shaman is the keeper of the fire. That's what the real meaning of the word come from Tungus. I asked a shaman, to Tungus shaman, what he means, because Michael Harner was saying that this is a wise man who traveled between the world. And I always had a little suspicious that this is not true.
Right.
So I asked a Tungus shaman I met here in New York.
Okay.
And he said, this is the keeper of the fire. And maybe that's the last thing that we need to talk about, is that the real meaning of the word shaman in Tungus is the keeper of the fire. The shaman role is to be that keeper, to make sure that the fire is an ongoing fire. It never dies. he's the keeper of the stories, the teachings, the dance, the culture of it. He's the keeper of the physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being of a community, not just for himself or not just one person. He is responsible for the community well-being, and that's incredibly important, because not every person that does boom, boom, boom on a drum is a shaman. You might be a good drummer or a good teacher of drumming or shamanic drumming, but you are not a shaman. A shaman is the person that takes responsibility of the well-being of a community. He is the center of a community. Without community, you can't be a shaman. And a community without a shaman is not a community. There is a relationship between them. One feed the other. One give power to each other. And that's why it's so important that every person that think of himself as shaman create a community and be responsible for community.
Wow. Some intense responsibilities. I feel not only motivated to go out, plant some plants, and be in nature, but also to keep doing exciting, fun and wonderful things for my community here in San Diego.
Absolutely. And that father, like in the Quichua tradition, it's called Taita. Taita is the father. I am a Taita. I was given that title by those shamans because I have a responsibility for my community. I create a community and I keep it. And I do it for 22 years. I'm not leaving it. And that's the power of a shaman, or to be a core, a place where people can come and have relief, healing, and rejuvenate themselves. But you have to be there. You are the shaman. You're not just boom, 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 or you're not just doing healing. A shaman healer is a healer. That's fine. Or a musician, or a ceremonial. But to be a shaman, you really have to be the center of community, take responsibility. And we're all talking about that at the end. You have to have responsibility. If you don't have responsibility, then what?
Well, you don't have power if you don't have responsibility.
That's right.
That's a beautiful message. So all of those people who stood through, who listened through, I think we're close to 90 minutes. We might even be close to 2 hours. I don't know how long we've gone today. I do want to encourage our listeners to do you have an itzhakbeery.com, or is there a private website?
Yeah, itzhakbeery.com. It's my name.com.
Excellent.
And you can find all the other sites through that, I guess.
Absolutely. And you can also connect with him through me on Facebook. He's one of my friendly Facebook friends, and we're in a few of the same groups. Which groups are you moderating on Facebook?
Well, Facebook is a little strange for me because my personal page is full. There's 5,000 limit. So I started another page under my name Yachak, which is a name, a shaman in the Quichua. And then these two pages, then Shaman Portal have 2 pages, and New York Shamanic Circle, and I'm also involved with, of course, with the Andes Summit pages. You can always find me there.
Wonderful. Great. And he's also posting on my Shamanic Herbs group, which I have fun connecting with his event. You're an admin for that group. I made you an admin a long time ago.
Oh, that's you?
That's me.
I didn't know how I became that. Okay. I didn't know. I mean, people were starting to
have all kinds of masks.
Oh, okay. All right. That's good. It's a beautiful group. I'm happy to do it because I'm sitting on this thing on Facebook a lot, and so when I see people, all those people who wants to come to the group, I help them come in.
Yes, thank you so much for helping
Our
out.
goal is to bring the community together, to enlarge the community, to make the community strong. The whole idea is to create a tipping point in our society that more people will do the shamanic work, that we would not be able to be ignored, that we will move and push for shamanic values in our societies. It's very important to do that. I mean, that's my goal. It's not about ego. It's not about making Facebook big. It's about sending messages of personal responsibility, of taking care of the earth, and equal for gay and lesbian people or bisexual. It's about equality in front of the great creator, and to make sure that people live in a way that it does not hurt other animals or other species, and keep our planet in a way that we can grow. That's the shamanic work. And so every time that we convert one more person, every time that another person come in, we're creating a tipping point. We're creating a movement that helps people change their consciousness.
Absolutely. And it's brilliant the way that we're holding that together, because we can see the fruits of our labors. You know, even in my short lifetime, I've noticed the sort of change in the atmosphere around whether or not laws persecute people for doing shamanic ritual and ceremony and healing work. And it's starting to change really rapidly, as Denver just legalized magic mushrooms, and Oakland, California now has ayahuasca, ibogaine, and magic mushrooms available to people.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, listen, when I came to New York many years ago, acupuncture was a woo-woo. Reiki, it was a no-no.
No.
Chiropractor was was only legalized a few years later in 1980 something.
Wow.
Imagine in 40 years we had an incredible change. And I'm doing healing in hospitals. I had a guy for a client of mine who had a liver transplant. The head of the department was sitting guarding the door so I can finish the ceremony.
Wow.
With smoke and trago and flowers and all that, because they knew that it's important. So there is a change, and the change is so important to maintain and to continue to bring that. That's what I'm talking, the tipping point. One of the things that I forgot to say,
please,
or one more project that I'm working on is about this book, the Shamanic Healing book, is that there are many PhDs, doctors, medical doctors, and others, psychotherapists, and many professions that so-called scientific professions, that are people who are working in their fields, but they also double as shamans. But they also feel very insecure. They all feel very alone. They don't feel very connected. They feel that the world is against them. And so I'm working with another person to create a conference of all those people who are, so it's like a PhD shamans who are, I'm not sure exactly the name, but we have a place next year that we want to bring all those people who are practicing Western medicine, allopathic medicine, to bring them into one place and to create a movement, to create a support group for those people, and so they can start creating more of organizations that they can change the policies and change the way of thinking of hospitals and health providers to allow shamanic work in officially, not like I'm sneaking in like I'm doing, but but really to allow that to happen in hospitals. And it's proven, like when my client went to liver transplant, we did a journey before, and I did a healing for her, and she went like a mountain. she became her waka. She became a powerful, and she went to the surgery not with fear. She came with the resolve to be strong, to be powerful, and she won. There was no guarantee, and she won. She was very. She's walking around, and now for a few more years now. So it's very powerful if you can go into hospitals, and there are a lot of I had a woman once on morphine before her death, and we did a ceremony, Limpia ceremony, and she didn't need morphine for the whole night until the next day in the middle of the day. And her body relaxed. She was able to release all the anger and the pain she was holding before she passed away. So it was a beautiful healing. And if you can do that for people in these kind of situations, and they can leave peacefully, or heal them, that would be amazing. So that's what I want to do. I want to bring shamanism into mainstream, into hospitals and healthcare, not death care.
Yes, yeah, bring people back to wellness. And
yeah.
Shamanism is mostly about wellness. It seems like it's a form of wellness that helps us to connect to the greater consciousness of nature and the universe. And when we do that, naturally we become well.
Yes, absolutely. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. It's
absolutely.
Really, yeah.
So you can find us, if you're listening to us on a podcast, you can find us on YouTube, EntheoRadio, radio, EntheoRadio. You can find us also in EntheoRadio.com. Our old episodes are still there. We're rebuilding the website right now. And you can also, there's my alarm, you can also find us on Facebook, EntheoRadio, Facebook.com/EntheoRadio. And all the media at EntheoRadio. I'm going to grab that. I'll be right back. Say bye to everybody. Itzhak. I got it. Sorry about that.
Well, that's modern life.
Right.
In shamanism, there is no time, In shamanism, there's a beautiful term, and it's called pregnant time. Do you know about pregnant time?
No, I don't know about. I mean, I have a son, and there was pregnancy, but tell me about pregnant time.
So pregnant time is when you feel that the time is ripe. It's everything comes your way, and you wait for the moment that the time is ripe for that moment to emerge. And in the Western civilization, we cut that instinct. We cut that ability for us to understand what the right time is. Because the train leaves at 6:51. It doesn't leave at 6:57. It leaves at 6:51. And so you have to be there, otherwise you miss the train. So all our life is really chop into pieces, but we don't have time for ourselves to really listen to our intuition, to listen to the cosmos talking to us, to understand that there is a logic in waiting, in making these things happen. And that's what pregnant time is. And on my trips, I have a lot of those lessons, because people who come from the Western world, they're just like animals. I said to them that the ayahuasca started at 6:00, and it was 7, and this woman was angry. She said, "You said it's going to be 6."
Hey, right. I know. I've heard this before. I know what it is. It's been called Hawaiian time in my area, or it's also called Indian time, like Native American time.
Well, I kind of like the idea of pregnant, because a pregnant is an active way of, you can say shamanic time, yes, but sure. But pregnant time has a way of understanding that you can't push the baby before the 9 months.
Right. Or the 9 centimeters dilated. Yeah, right.
Exactly. So there is a time for nature to bring that fruit out. You don't want to have the fruit is not good, is not sweet, right? That's the thing about that is so important for us to teach, to listen to the time, to listen to nature to speak to us, to be in the harmony of the creation, how it's evolved. We don't have time for that, because the train is leaving at 6:51. And you said that the ayahuasca is at 6 o'clock, and it's 7 o'clock already. So how can I go now? I lost an hour, and I'm in the jungle, and you were an hour late. Now, okay, so where are you going to go? You are in a jungle. You better enjoy it, right? The shamans are not ready because they're listening to their time. They are praying. They are bringing the spirit. They don't look at the watch and they say, hey, it's 6:51 now and we have to do that. They are not ready. And we need to learn to honor the rhythm of time, of the ripen of time. Yeah, so that's a beautiful lesson. There are beautiful lessons everywhere. But
it is. It's a good lesson. I experienced that lesson when I was going through an ayahuasca retreat. And
oh, really?
Shamans were coming in from out of town, and one arrived and the other one was late. And I'm like, they're going to be late. And I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, why are people late? And then I'm like, okay, they're coming. I can just drop in and go walk for a little while in nature. But I got in my little, city dance about it.
Yeah, I mean, when I used to take people to Brazil with Ipupiara, we took them into the jungle, right? And they were like walking, like that, pacing. What shall we do now? What shall we do now? What shall we do now? Be. What do you need to do? So it took them 3 days to really just like relax and able to listen to their body, to listen to the wind, to listen to the trees, to the monkeys, to the frogs. Because without that, you can't have medicine. And how can you do medicine in your home where you don't have the space, the emotional space, the body space, the relaxation to really have the medicine work on you? Not coming back from your advertising job or from whatever it is that you're driving 3 hours on a car to get to there, and then you have, in an hour you have a ayahuasca ceremony, and of course it can't work. It will bring all the evil spirit with it, because you're not grounded, you're not relaxed to accept that. So it's very important to have the downtime, to make the changes, to shapeshift from city people to nature. It takes a while to do that. And those people who are doing it, going back to plant medicine, if you do that, driving 3 or 4 hours to get to it, and you're getting into a traffic accident, and then you're coming there, you're just arriving like an hour before, and then you do a plant medicine. What the heck do you think you're going to get, right? You need 3 days to relax.
Yeah.
Just to be part of nature, to be part of the ayahuasca, part of the rivers. You can't do that like what we try to do. We try to do everything shortcut, So people don't want me to do trips for 15 days because they want to do it in 5. Why 5? Because that's the amount of vacations they get. But 5 days, if you go to the jungle for 5 days, it takes you 3 days just to relax.
Right.
Just to really know where you are. I mean, just look down and see the red fire ants over there. Or the snakes or something. You're totally thrown into a different world. How can you do ayahuasca? You need time off. Slow. You need the pregnant time.
And it's also, I'm noticing there's sort of a tie-in to being responsible with your energy, because pregnant time, that feeling of pregnant time when it's right, when it's ripe, gives you a feeling of the energy that everyone's putting off is now calm, and we can make changes in the universe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a whole different. Listen, I'll tell you a little story about a couple of years ago. We were in the Quichua in Sarayaco, the river of corn. I went there because there is a very famous shaman there who was 98 at that time. He's 100 now. Still alive, still doing ayahuasca, still doing all of these things. I mean, walking a little slow now. But he was very well known, and I always wanted to go and meet him and work with him. And so we went there. And the first two ceremonies we did with his grandson. He's a fantastic ayahuasquero. We prepared the ayahuasca. We cut that, we prepared it, and he cooked it for, with prayers and all that. It was beautiful. It was very, very powerful evenings. And then we did the third ceremony with Don Sabino, the great grandfather, right? And he said, "You're going to do that here, not in the ceremonial house, but in my kitchen." Well, the kitchen is not kitchen like here. It's like it's a hat where people eat usually, or the family eat. And they moved the tables, and we were there, and the family sat down and watched us. And so we lay down on mattresses, on mats, and some of the people were like really got upset. He says, "Well, what do you mean? We came all the way from all over the world to do ayahuasca with this amazing, very powerful guy, and he put us in the kitchen with all his family watching and talking with children, and they said, that's not sacred."
Okay.
They didn't even thought that it was a great honor that he did a ceremony with his family in his living quarters for us. Because our concept of what's sacred is very different. For them, sacred is the family. So they invited us to be with the family.
Yes.
And they were complaining that he was spending too much time healing some people, because I have to wait for so long for being treated. That's not fair. So there were some people who just got up and left. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, pregnant time, or the ability to relax into the jungle rhythm, or to old human nature. And we bring our own concept of time. We keep all kind of concept of society to our expectations, to places where they don't have that at all. Where they honoring us, they thought that this is totally disgrace for them. So we need to relax, and we need to really understand what they really do, and how they view their medicine. Yeah.
Right. And it shows us how steeped in narcissism and sociopathy we are as a Western civilization to hear that story, like, and not realize, family is important. Family comes first. All those things.
Yeah, exactly. It was so, I mean, for me, I was just so honored that to lay on the feet of this guy who sitting in the kitchen on a chair, and his wife bring this ayahuasca, and his children and the grandchildren all sitting and talking and singing with us. And it was the most common, beautiful thing, because that's how ayahuasca is done. It's not done like I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say it how it's done in the Western world, but but that's how it's done. It's done as a family event, as a way to bring people together. And and the whole purpose of ayahuasca is not to have the vision. The whole purpose of ayahuasca is to open the heart and to feel the love, or the love of the cosmos. So you can bring, with open heart, you can go back to your country, and you can share that beauty of the heart, beauty of nature and the cosmos with everybody around you. That was the purpose of this ayahuasca. It wasn't about, I'm going to get a message from spirit and I'm going to be so powerful, you know? Yeah. a lot of teaching, I got to tell you.
Yeah. You have so many experiences, and I want to invite you back on in a few weeks. I would be really excited if we could know soon. Maybe you just let me know when your tickets are going on sale for next year's.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And any details about your January thing.
Well, the January is on my website under events. I'm only allowed to bring 16 people because. No, seriously, because we can't have more than 20 people on the canoe. And I'm serious. We can only have 20 people on the canoe, and that means me and the tour guide and the driver and his helper, and 16 people. So it's a limitation. So and out of them, I only have 7 spaces left.
Wow. So everybody, ladies and gentlemen who are listening, get your tickets. Get your 7 tickets now.
Yeah, but you have to understand that this is not a tourist trip. It's not it's being in the raw, pristine, untouched, surrounded by caiman, dolphins, monkeys, and the jaguars. But it's really raw. You know, that's why I go there, because it's still raw. So it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for people who, like I said, there's a woman who asked me, "Are you going to camp?" I says, "How do you? There's no Hilton there, you know." Yeah, there's no accommodations. And there's one woman who asked me, "Can I have a single supplement? Can I have my own room?" And I said, "Well, in the jungle, it's not allowed. If we put you somewhere and the jungle will eat you, it will be my responsibility." So it's not for, no, it's not really, it's not, we have to be prepared, it's a beautiful place. It's like totally virgin, places that for many years nobody lived there. And so the animals are back there in big ways. And
yeah.
They usually don't open this forest for anyone. It's only for themselves. But because I was there and we did some project with them, we helped them build a community house, and they agreed to do this trip for us. Beautiful.
This is fantastic. So that's on your website by your name.
Yeah, Itzhak Beery, and it's under events. You'll see Ecuador trip. Yeah.
You got it going on. And then so people can check out shamansportal.org, right? And they see everything.
Shaman Portal is really, like you said, is to bring the shamanic community together with workshops and teachings and trips and all that. It's all listed there. And you can list your events there too for free, which is a beautiful thing for people, for all the community too.
That's a good reminder. I once listed on there 6 or 5 years ago or something, and it's been helpful. It really has. People have found me through it, like 3 or 4.
Well, it's not like Google. The idea is that only qualified people who are actually looking for shamanic experience go to Shaman Portal. That's why it doesn't sell new age stuff, and it doesn't sell any other modalities, because I want to keep it for shamans only. and for people who are interested in shamanism. But it's not like wide. It's I believe that we need to create a community, a strong community first within ourselves, and then spread it out to outside. So yeah, I mean, visit there. There's a lot of articles that shamans wrote about it, about their experience. Is beautiful, and then some moments of transformation too. And there's a lot of materials. It's very rich in teaching materials. So you can use that and to learn too. There's one more thing that I'm doing now based on Shaman Portal.
Tell us.
I'm going to publish every full moon. I'm going to publish solstice and equinox. I'm 4 times a year. Quarterly, it's a selection of articles, shamanic articles by well-known people who, part of their books or part of their experiences, that is something they want to teach, and it would be by subscription to people. It's called Shaman Portal Quarterly Review, and I hope it's going to be advertising free, and it's just the articles, and it's really beautifully designed to be able to spread teachings for people on a subscription basis, so they can grow, and then we can do more of the teaching worldwide. Yeah.
Excellent. That's a beautiful service. It reminds me of there was a Shaman's Drum magazine, kind of similar.
Yeah, it folded many years ago. These are the days where you had to print a magazine.
Yeah.
Paper. You remember paper?
I have a collection of the Shaman's Drum.
Yeah. So yeah, I had 60. It was beautiful, but he could not really put it together, and then he got sick, and it doesn't exist anymore. There are a couple of the indie shaman from London, and then there is another one from Nick, and also in the UK. Sorry?
Is it Nicholas Breezewind?
Yes. That's a beautiful magazine. He's doing an incredible job, beautiful job. But there is not a lot of publications like that for our community, which I think that it's very important to have to bring the community together.
It's in the works, and I'm happy to support you, absolutely. And I hope people reach out to you and they support you as much as I want to.
Well, I'm going to go on. So I invite people to walk the path with me, not just because of me, because I'm offering some parts of it, but there's many different ways you can go to, and I invite you to really live to the full potential, but live for the 7 generations, not for you. And just think that everything that you do, what it does to your grandchildren and those that come after. That's how to live it, how to live life, not from the place of stealing and raping the earth for your short-term benefits.
Absolutely. We're stewards. I mean, that's what humans were originally here for, is to be stewards of the elements and all of the, what you call Panchamama and what I may call Great Spirit.
Yeah. Well, my teacher, Ipopiara, came from a tribe called Uruuwawawu, which is people from the star. And they believe that they were watching us from above. And they saw that the people in the Amazon and elsewhere in this world don't know how to protect the earth, how to live in harmony with nature. So they came with spaceships down into the Amazon. And their role is to teach the people on the earth how to preserve the earth, how to honor the earth. And that is their belief system. That's their creation story.
Wow.
That's the reason why they came to the Amazon. Except that when Ipupiara was born in 1933, there was 3,000 people of this tribe. 10 years ago, when he died, he was the last shaman, or the last person from his tribe. So those people who came to save us, they themselves died. Did they teach us how to preserve the earth? Ipupiara tried to do that, and I'm trying to do what he did, to continue his work. But who is listening? So, I mean, that
that's a good way to end the show. Who's listening?
Well, we better listen, because otherwise there will not going to be much of us, the humans. I'm not talking about the planet. The planet will continue to, but the humans will not be here.
Yeah.
All right, but this is a positive show, right?
Right.
So we believe we are working to change that, and we need each one of you to really participate in that project.
Yeah, and if you don't step in the ways that we've talked about, please just actively listen to what's around you, to the seasons, to nature, to the elements.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it so much, your time, and everybody who's listening. There's so much to do, really, and stay tuned.
Thank you very much. We had Itzhak Beery on the show, and we were talking about both the Gift of Shamanism book and his new book, Shamanic Healing. I hope that you join us again soon, and if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel, EntheoRadio. This is Captain Hugh T. Alchemy, also known as Trevahr, signing out.